you're not just learning to write, but you're writing to learn.
Hello, fans of SRSD. You're watching the SRSD Mentor Series, helping you change students' lives forever. This episode is on how SRSD positively affects students with learning disabilities and emotional behavior disorders. SRSD is the leading research-based method for teaching writing to learn for special education. On the phone today is Tori Lineman, co-author of the book Strategy Instruction for Students with Learning Disabilities. Tori, you've done a lot of research in strategy instruction for children with learning disabilities. What's the bottom line from that research?
I started my research with students with ADHD and strategy instruction. And actually, I think the bottom line from studies that I had conducted was that self-regulation is key in learning in general. And the pride that students have when they're able to complete something that they haven't been able to complete before, it's phenomenal. So teaching students how to regulate and monitor their own performance is an essential component for students who struggle, as well as typically achieving students. It really just made them stronger learners. And while I loved the research, it's truly the implementation of that's driving me, particularly focusing on those students with disabilities.
So tell us more about implementation in the classroom, particularly those classrooms that have a combination of general education and special needs students.
So in a general education classroom where there's a variety of needs, the implementation would be very based on those individual needs. Not that it's individualized instruction, but having knowledge of their skills prior to even starting the introduction of the strategy itself is really essential. And you start by making sure that you're doing those frequent checks for understanding that they really do possess those prerequisite skills necessary in order to be successful. And then when going through the 6 stages of the strategy, making sure to monitor whether or not students have mastered the strategy at each stage so they can move on to using the strategy with some scaffolded experiences. So that may look like pulling out a group of students or even individual students to provide them with whatever skills or knowledge or support they need to be able to fully implement the strategy and have it be most effective to help them improve their performance of that task.
Excellent. You also spoke about peer collaboration between typically achieving students and special needs students. Tell us how these two groups help each other improve writing and learning.
Students that are typically achieving peers often gain the skills quicker than those students with some special needs or more learning difficulties. And so to be able to use those peers and to practice that together, it's really helpful for both students, because with SRSD, it's not just memorizing the steps of the strategy, it's also knowing what to do at each step of the strategy, those hows and whys. How do I use this and why? Why do I use that? So being able to talk with their peers who may struggle a little bit more and to be able to provide that extra practice is helpful for both students. And most often what I see is the greatest stumbling block is trying to go too quickly. We often feel rushed to get through curriculum before it's truly mastered. And so we'll lose students because they won't have mastered the strategy, so they won't be able to use it, and certainly then won't be able to generalize it to other appropriate settings, which is our whole goal.
Tori, in our SRSD Mentor Series, we always include a success story. What is your favorite?
Oh, my favorite success story is with a student with ADHD. He was a 4th grader, and the first story that he wrote was based on a picture of a squirrel, and it said, "Bob is mice and eat." After 8 sessions, the student increased his performance over 600%. He had a full story with all of the elements considered necessary for a complete story. His holistic quality rating was excellent, so it was fantastic. Through the participation with the SRSD and learning those self-regulation techniques and those strategies, it gave him that sense that he really could be a successful learner, and that carried on through, high school and now into college.
What a wonderful story, and thank you so much for your time today. Our guest was Tori Lineman, and if you'd like to ask her more about SRSD techniques helping to improve writing and learning in special education, email us at info@srsdonline.com. Next up is a short compilation video from SRSD researchers who study the effects of SRSD in the special education classroom.
It starts with a special education teacher, and they're dealing with the most struggling writers. And suddenly these kids are bringing in nice pieces of writing. In fact, the research shows that these kids can write as well as, or even a little better than, their typically developing peers once they've had SRSD instruction in a genre. And now the other teachers are going, whoa, how did you teach him to do that?
Most of Harrison Graham's work was really with students with learning disabilities, children who struggle with emotional concerns. You have something that has been tried, it's been effective.
That it's great for struggling students. It really helps build confidence. I would tell them to keep in mind that the lessons aren't fully scripted, that they're allowed to think about their students and how to best meet those students' needs, that it's recursive. So a lot of the aspects you might not hit one day, but you'll come back to it another time, and that if students don't grasp it the first time, it's okay. The parts are in place for the students to be successful, to have goal setting and self-statement so that they can get to that independent level.
SRSD has a 30-year background of effectiveness. Kids with behavioral disorders, kids with learning disorders, kids with ADHD, kids with mild cognitive impairments, kids with autism, and it will also work with typically achieving kids. When you go through this process, kids literally learn how to learn. They learn how to do the strategy, how to apply it, when to apply it. They know what they need to do, why they need to do it, and how it helps them.
The success of the kids has been the best thing of all in getting SRSD accepted in schools.
That'll do it for this episode of the SRSD Mentor Series, sponsored by SRSD Online and Writing to Learn. I'm your host, Randy Barth, and until next time, please share, like, and subscribe. And as always, send this link to any friends who want to change students' lives forever.